Hello viewers, thank you very much for watching Gibbs TV. Today's video will be looking at quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method approaches. Specifically, we will be looking at differences and similarities that exist among these research approaches. Okay, that will be the part 4 of the research design videos. Let's get into it. Let's start with quantitative research approach. What is it about? Quantitative research approach allows you as a researcher to test hypotheses using sample size, okay, from a given population. It also has data that are mainly expressed in numbers and graphs. It also requires a larger sample size. Data or numbers are analyzed using math and statistical techniques or analysis. So this is the brief about quantitative research approach. What is it about and what it does? Let's look at qualitative research approach. It allows you as a researcher to formulate hypotheses or theories, okay? While that of the quantitative allows you to test the hypothesis or the theory. Data is mainly expressed in words for qualitative research, but for the case of quantitative, we saw that it is always expressed in numbers and sometimes in graphs. But for qualitative, it is mainly expressed in words. It also requires small sample size or fewer respondents, maybe 30, 20, depending on the type of study that you are looking at or design. Data is analyzed by summarizing because it deals with words count. So data is always analyzed by summarizing, categorizing, and interpreting. After you transcribing, you need to code them to see, okay, and summarize so that it will help you to know the patterns and the things that will emerge from the summary. Very, very important. Now that we know the critical difference that exists between the two approaches, so when do we use when? All right, it is very simple. That is, if your goal or your research aim is to test or confirm a theory or hypothesis, then you should go for a quantitative research approach. Because once you are likely to test a theory or test hypothesis, then you are most likely going to opt for quantitative research approach, because you saw from the previous slides that it allows you as a researcher to test hypothesis or theory. However, on the other hand, if your goal is to understand or explore an idea or formulate a theory or hypothesis, anytime your purpose is to formulate a theory or hypothesis, then you need to go with a qualitative research design. Then you should go for qualitative research approach. Okay? So if your aim or your goal is to test the theory or the hypothesis, then you go for quantitative. If the goal is to formulate a theory or hypothesis, then you should go for qualitative research approach. There is also a third approach which combines the quantitative and the qualitative, and we saw from the previous video, and this is called the mixed method approach. Let us use a research question to understand the three different approaches and how we approach them in a research study. Take, for example, this research idea. Assuming we want to find out how students are satisfied with their online studies. That is, how satisfied are students with their online studies. Okay, in this particular research, or in this particular research question, okay, note that the three approaches can be used in different ways to approach this particular scenario or research goal or the question that is stated above. Okay, the researcher can either utilize a qualitative approach, a quantitative approach, or the mixed method approach. Let's see how we can approach this particular scenario. For quantitative approach, if you are taking the quantitative approach, then you can survey maybe 500 students at the school by using a Likert scale instrument. That is from a scale of 1 to 5. okay, a scale of 1 to 5, to find out how satisfied are these students with their professors or with the school activities. All right. So you can come out with this Likert scale. That is what do you call it? A scale of 1 to 5 points. Okay, where we have very satisfied, 1, satisfied, 2, neutral, 3, somehow satisfied, 4, not satisfied, 5. Okay, that is a questionnaire to survey a large pool, because remember, quantitative approach involves large sample size. Okay, unlike qualitative, that is small sample size. But for qualitative, large, you can sample 150, 100, 200, but it's a good idea to increase, your statistical power to get a very large sample size. Very, very important. With the collected data from the Likert scale, okay, you should be able to run a statistical analysis and draw conclusion that might sound something like averages, because this one is Likert scale, so it's a scale of 1 to 5. So you need to find the average score for the responses. So for this particular scenario, okay, the conclusion might sound something like, on average, students rate their schools or their professors at 4.2 out of 5. Okay, they rated their professors or the school activities on average at 4.2 out of 5 scale. That is a good thing because it's close to 5. Close to 5, it means they are satisfied or close to very satisfied. So that is good. Yes. On the qualitative approach, but if you want to go for the qualitative approach, okay, then the researcher can conduct interviews with maybe 20 students or 15 students or 10 students or 30 students, okay, and ask them some open-ended question, such as, how satisfied are you with your studies or with your professors or with the school? The same question, but it should be open-ended, no options for them to choose from. They have to state, they have to write their own opinion, okay? Because you want to collect data on words count, not just on number count, okay? Because you want to utilize the strength style of what? Analysis, where you're going to summarize and categorize and interpret the various words that you transcribe from the interview or from the open-ended survey instrument. Very, very important. So you can utilize interviews to also come out with that. Okay. All right. Then once you transcribe the interview, or maybe you were able to summarize all the responses from the open-ended, then you try to find patterns and recurring themes so that it will help you to analyze the data sets. Very, very important. For the mixed method approach, you can approach this very scenario in 2 different ways. For mixed method approach, it can be approached in 2 different ways, 2 ways. First, let's get a first approach or the first way. First, you must conduct interview with the student first, then you proceed with the quantitative. So we are going with the qualitative style, then we support with the quantitative. So first, you must conduct the interview with the student, okay? Through that, you gain insight and come up with a hypothesis, okay? For example, you learn through the interview that students prefer individual assignments, okay? So first, you conduct your interview, then through the interview, the researcher will gain insight about the hypothesis for testing via the survey, okay? So, for example, you learn through interviews that students prefer individual assignment over group projects. So how true is this, at the larger scale? How true it is? But from the 20 students that you interview, the 15 students that you interview, okay, you learn that students prefer individual assignment over group project. Then, with this idea or picture or insight, you then test whether this applies to a larger scale of students by using a survey to maybe sample about 500 students. to see how true is this, okay, across this larger population. All right, very, very important. So this is the first approach. You first have to do the qualitative approach to get the insight, then you support with the qualitative approach, the survey. The second approach is that it is also possible to do it in other way around. That is the second approach. So the second way, you can start off with a survey to see the bigger picture. Then you use interview to understand reasons behind it. So in this scenario, you have to start off with a survey, okay, to see the bigger picture. Then you use the interview to understand the reasons behind it, okay, to support your argument, okay, to support the statistical analysis that you did from the large data set from the survey. Thank you very much for subscribing to GIS TV. I will see you all in the next video.